Okay, so we have gone through our checklist. It looks like everybody can see us and hear us, so let's get started. Good morning. Hello and welcome to the online meeting of the MT83 Salmon Lake Reconstruction Project. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Gray, the Public Involvement Lead for HDR. During this meeting, members of the Montana Department of Transportation and the project team will share project details and respond to your questions. We believe this open house and question answer session will allow us to engage with you and provide the latest information about the project. As a reminder, today's session is being recorded and a copy of this meeting and the presentation will be posted on the project's webpage next week. Now it's time to get going. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Bob Boson, who will introduce the team and discuss MDT's Vision Zero.
Thanks, Lisa, and welcome everyone. Excuse me. I want to thank everyone for taking time to join us today. I'm glad we have the opportunity. We've been having some great success. We recently had an in-person meeting about this, but the opportunity to utilize technology and have the virtual meeting allows people from outside the area, many others, to be able to join us. So thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I do want to explain, I'm going to introduce the project team, but before I start, I just real quick want to kind of explain how come there's so many of us here on this. It's a little bit of an unusual project in that it's a new project development method called Cmgc, similar to a design build project. But a little bit different. So there's three groups involved, or three legs of the stool, if you will. The owner, that's MDT, the designer, which is HDR, and then Kiewit is the builder that's helping us to make sure we come up with a really solid plan. So with that explanation, the MDT members involved, starting with myself, I'm the district administrator for District 1 in Western Montana. Jacqueline, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good morning. I am Jacqueline Smith, the pre-construction engineer for District 1.
Thanks, Jacqueline. John?
Good afternoon, John Schmidt. I'm the District 1 construction engineer, Western Montana.
And Cameron?
Hello, I'm Cameron Klobernons. I work with the Consultant Design Bureau for MDT, and I coordinate the effort between the design consultants and MDT on this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Cameron. Eric?
Good morning. I'm Eric Miller with MDT's Alternative Contracting, and I'm managing the contract with our CM, Kiewit.
Thanks, Eric. And I believe someone whose name isn't on the table in front of you, but that has joined us is Mr. Matt Straub.
Bob, it appears we have lost you. There you go. You're back with us.
All right. I'm not sure where you lost me. Thanks, Eric, for the introduction. And someone whose name isn't on the board there, but I see has joined us this morning is Matt Straub. Matt?
Good morning. I'm Matt Straub with the Montana Department of Transportation, and I'll be the project manager on this, the construction project manager.
All right. Thanks, Matt. And now moving on to the HDR folks that are with us this morning. Lisa Fisher.
Good morning, everyone. This is Lisa Fisher. I'm the project manager for HDR.
Thanks, Lisa. And everyone's heard from Lisa Gray already. And finally, we have Mike George with Kiewit.
Yeah, hi, Mike George with Kiewit. I'll be the construction manager when we finally get to construction, and project manager as far as the pre-design and design work on the construction side.
Thanks, Mike. And with that, I'm going to move on now to just a quick discussion about Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is a strategy that MDT adopted on all roadways in Montana. It's a strategy to help to eliminate all traffic fatalities and serious injuries while increasing safety and mobility for all roadway users. In 2020, tragically, there were 212 fatalities on Montana roadways. And so far in 2021, we have 169 fatalities, which is actually above 16 more than where the same number, or 16 more than where we were at the same time in 2020. So by the numbers of fatalities, 2021 is shaping out to be an even more tragic year than what 2020 was. So to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on our roads in Montana, we need everyone to do their part. We need everyone to drive sober. We need everyone to drive to the conditions of the roadway. We need everyone to not speed. We need people to be watching out for pedestrians and bicyclists. We need you to use your seatbelts, and we need everyone to be attentive. The distracted driving has got to stop. Also, we need people to look out for others and just be courteous to each other and recognize that if we can all work together, we can make a difference, save lives, and allow everyone to get home to their family and friends at the end of every day. So with that, I just want to again thank everyone for joining us. And I'm going to turn this back over to Lisa, who can discuss a little bit about the Q&A format and how everyone will be able to participate in this virtual meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. A question and answer session will be held immediately following the presentation. Feel free to write your questions now or at any time during the presentation, and we will answer your questions live after the PowerPoint presentation concludes. In order to participate in the question and answer session, locate the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Click the button, which is highlighted in blue on the PowerPoint slide. Type your question and remember to hit the send button. Answering your questions in this format allows us to track them and use them as part of the record and get them over to the engineering team to take a look at what concerns and what we're hearing from our public. Now I'll turn the project back over to Bob for the project overview.
Thanks, Lisa. As many of you may know, this roadway has it's been there in its current configuration for a long time. It was actually designed and built in the early 50s, and today we're in the process of trying to design it to improve the safety features of the roadway. This includes widening the highway and providing wider shoulders, straighten out the curves that we can, flatten some of the hills as possible, and shift the roadway a little bit, again, where possible. It's an extremely challenging road construction location, literally being between a rock and a lake at this point. So we're also looking at what can we do to improve the existing cut slopes. The cut slope being what you can see on the right-hand side of the picture right there. That is a slope where the slope of the mountain was cut. We just have a lot of rockfall hazards out there. What can we do to improve that? What can we do to create drainage improvements out there? And we'll be installing new signs and new guardrail as necessary. So I'm going to let Eric speak to us a little bit about the CMGC process and what the benefits of that are. So, Eric?
Thanks, Bob. A few years ago, MDT was approved by the Montana legislature to conduct a pilot program with 4 projects using the CMGC delivery method. This method utilizes a separate design consultant and a contractor to help design the project from the start of the pre-construction phase. So MDT on this project is working with the design consultant HDR and a contractor, Kiewit Infrastructure Company, for the design and the construction of this project. As part of that effort, during the pre-construction phase, Kiewit will develop a construction staging plan that preserves access and promotes mobility for local residents and the traveling public. There's a number of advantages to CMGC, but one of the big ones for area stakeholders is that the contractor hears firsthand about what community concerns will be during construction. So for example, they can concentrate on keeping the road open for access by emergency response vehicles. So that's just a quick summary of that CMGC process. And with that, I will turn it over to Lisa Fisher.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. So generally, the proposed roadway follows the existing road with some improvements to curbs to meet current design standards, making them less steep and safer to navigate. The proposed makeup or typical section includes 2 12-foot travel lanes and 3 to 4 foot shoulders on both sides. The current design has been able to accommodate 4-foot shoulders for the majority of the project limits, and we will continue to try to accommodate that 4-foot shoulder wherever possible as the design moves towards final design. As shown in the figures on this screen, this can be a challenging geographic location. In many areas, the highway is constrained by that steep mountain slope on one side and then Salmon Lake on the other, which really makes it difficult to add width to the roadway. The intersection with Woodworth Road is located almost in the middle of the project limits, and it will be realigned to meet up with the highway at a more perpendicular angle, which helps to improve sight distance for drivers that are stopped at or on Woodworth Road. Instead of having to turn back to see if traffic is coming, oncoming traffic will be able to be seen in a more natural left to right line of sight. A traffic study was also completed at this intersection, and at this time, analysis indicates that turn lanes will not be needed on Woodworth or on MT83. There are 10 pullouts located along the project limits, and the current design maintains all of them. The new pullouts are designed to be similar in size and extend 24 feet past the shoulder stripe. The picture you see here is at a unique pullout location near the north end of the project, and it connects the pullout with an existing boat ramp access. The ramp access won't be modified as part of the project, but the current configuration of the pullout will be maintained. Now onto the cut slopes. There are 3 major cut slopes located along the roadway within the project limits. The project team evaluated a number of different slope treatments and safety improvements within these locations to help keep rocks off the road. The proposed catchment ditch is shown on the screen, and this 10-foot ditch will provide a storage space for falling rock and debris to collect and keep objects off the road. In some locations, a rockfall fence is recommended to sit on top of the new concrete barrier, and that's really just to help catch additional material if it bounces. That 10-foot catchment ditch will also provide MDT's maintenance teams easy access, so they can come through and clean out that debris whenever it's needed. And then lastly, this kind of configuration is still being developed, and so the exact catchment ditch layout and materials will be continued to be evaluated as we move forward or move towards final design. And in order to accommodate those 3 to 4 foot shoulders that we discussed earlier, roadway widening towards the lakeside, towards Salmon Lake, was required. And the current design includes 13 locations where the retaining walls will be used to help provide that additional roadway width. These walls will be visible from the lake, and we provided a few photos here from past projects to just give you an idea of what type or what this type of wall might look like. A few other details that I think is worth noting for this project include the culvert replacement at Fish Creek. This large culvert will be increased to a 5-foot by 5-foot box culvert to help provide fish passage. And the project will also include vegetation removal along the roadway to improve sight distance and help drivers see wildlife approaching the road a little bit sooner. And again, those wider shoulders on the road is going to help accommodate bicyclists through this recreational corridor. Also, roadside ditches, they will be flattened and increased where possible to improve safety and accommodate additional storage for rocks, debris, and snow, knowing that this area of the highway can be challenging due due to the geographic location and steep slopes that we talked about earlier. And then lastly, the current construction cost is estimated at $24 million. We also wanted to make note that private approaches or driveways along the project limits will be updated to match the current roadway. Our right-of-way team is currently meeting with landowners to discuss the proposed design and help answer questions as we move forward. Site distance, the size of the approach, and the grade are all being evaluated to be improved where feasible. Also, clearing of obstructions such as trees or small brush are also being looked at to help provide better site distance at private approaches. And I think that's it for me. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike George, and he's going to discuss the project schedule.
Hi, again, Mike George with Kiewit. I'm on the construction side as the construction manager. You can see our design phase and construction phase schedule. Currently, we're in the fall 2021 there. We're about 60% design. So, you know, in layman terms, that's really, we've identified the major features of the project, and now we've got to take it to the next through the summer, really figure out all the details. And Lisa gave a lot of some of the major scopes throughout the project, a lot of the design features. So now the challenge is to really work out those details between spring and summer of 2022. We'll start construction early 2023. In the spring of 2022 and summer 2022, there will be some tree and vegetation removal, as Lisa mentioned, to get some of the trees and stuff out of the way prior to construction in the major construction phase. Major work really starts early 2023, as soon as the weather cooperates and we can get out there and get some real work done. And then we'll finish the majority of the roadway, widening construction walls, drainage in 2023. And then there will be a few things that we're gonna finish up and wrap up on 2024. Maybe some finished paving, chip seal, signage, guardrail, things like that. So you can see that most of it will be 2023, and what that'll entail for the most part is there will be some single lane, there will be some open through lanes as far as 2-lane traffic. You know, there'll be some piloted traffic areas and some automated lights. And so we're working out those details to really try to keep it open for the vacationers, people live through there, and the people just trying to get through the corridor as much as we can. And that's one of the major details that we're really working on between now and the summer of 2022. So that's all I have on schedule. We're looking for a good busy summer in 2023, and then finishing up in 24.
Thank you very much, Mike. A big thanks to all of our project presenters. I know that's a lot of information for you all. Please feel free to ask the project team questions. It's time for the question and answer part of our meeting. Remember, in order to participate in the question and answer session, please locate the QA button on the bottom of your screen. Click the button and submit your questions. It looks like we have a question coming in. So how this works is that I will read the questions and a member of the project team will answer them. So the first question is, will the design of the project facilitate access to the lakeshore by anglers and other recreationists? Will the design include any trails which run from pullouts down to the lakeshore? So I think we'll hand that over to Lisa Fisher.
Thanks, Lisa. So I will say that we don't have any new trails or any new accesses planned as part of this project. Everything that's out there today we're maintaining, but nothing new.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So far, that's the only question we have in our question and answer queue. If you have questions, please feel free to get them to us. And if you don't have questions right now, but find you have questions later, please go to our website or email me. The contact information is on the screen. I can get the information to either the construction part of our team or the design engineers, and we can get you an answer back. In the meantime, we'll take 2 or 3 minutes and wait in case someone has questions for us.
I would also suggest too, if they are typing up a long question that may be taking a little while, you could, quickly send us a little note saying, I do have a question, so that we don't miss it and end the meeting before we receive your full question.
And thank you for that first question, by the way. I meant to thank our questioners. They do a good job when they are interacting with our team. We appreciate it. We'll wait another minute or two in case someone comes up with a question. We do try to anticipate questions when we put these presentations together. But if we have missed something or confused something for you, please feel free to reach out to us.
Lisa,
the
this is
mean-
Bob, and
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to share a couple of the comments that are questions that were brought up in our in-person meeting. Have to do with the access to the road to the dump. So maybe I'd ask Lisa Fisher to speak a little bit about the turn lanes that aren't going to be built was a common question we heard, and then also any other turnout changes, I guess, because I know that is oftentimes something that I hear a lot is what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so we took traffic counts at Woodworth Road and both of the state park accesses, and looked at, how many vehicles are turning right, how many vehicles are turning left, and how long it would take someone that would pull up to, let's say, Woodworth Road intersection, how long would they have to sit there before a gap was presented that they could actually pull off into the road. So we looked at all these things, and with today's design standards, they weren't warranted. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. We have heard a lot of comments in regards specific to that Woodworth Road area, knowing that there's additional developments up in that area. But again, this is a very constrained part of the project, and so we have residential property across the street from Woodworth, and so we want to be cognizant of the potential impacts that would come with that as well. And with the pullouts, we really tried to maintain as much as we could. We know a lot of people use those pullouts to gain access to the lake, maybe just to stop and take a picture, and maybe drop off the kids at Legendary Lodge. And so we're definitely trying to maintain those as much as possible and provide that access to the users.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Tina, it looks like you've asked a question. Explain the budget of project. So I'm going to assume that that's to the project specifically, to the Salmon Lake Highway reconstruction, and not how projects in general by MDT are budgeted. If I've got that wrong, please write back and let me know. In the meantime, Lisa, do you want to start with sort of how the project comes together in terms of the cost?
Yeah, and I think this is where it's really important that we're using that CMGC method. We have Kiewit on board with us to talk a little bit about, the constructability of these things and how that impacts cost. And so we look at everything from material costs to labor costs on what it would take to build this road. And I think, again, this is a constrained area along the highway. And so when you're cutting into slopes or adding width to the road, you're looking at, cutting the mountain on one side or adding a wall on the other. And so that's really kind of where this project came through, and then I'll probably just hand it over to one of the MDT folks. Maybe Bob can start us off on more of the general process of how this budget came to be.
And actually, Lisa, I'm going to hand this back off to our pre-construction engineer who might have a better grasp on that, and that's Jacqueline.
Thanks, Bob. The funding for this project is coming, well, you saw in one of the earlier slides that we had 24 million listed for the cost. So that's a pricey project. So we do have this being Montana 83. This is a primary route. So the funding, majority of the funding that is going towards covering the construction costs is coming from our primary funding source. But we are seeking also to get some additional funding sources to help, since it is such an expensive project. So we are trying to get a grant for some federal lands access program funding. And then there's also some CARES 2 funding that'll go towards covering the construction costs as well.
And Jacqueline, could you explain CARES for folks that may not be familiar with that?
CARES came part of the COVID relief funding.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Tina, for getting back with me on that and clarifying. I sure appreciate it. That was great. Looks like we have a question from Bruce. The erosion along the lake, will that be addressed? And let's go to Lisa Fisher for that.
So the erosion along the lake, I'm guessing that's probably due to the culverts that are out there today. And so all of the existing culverts will be replaced as part of this project. We've done kind of a hydrology analysis to make sure that the pipes are spaced correctly so we can keep water off the road. And when we put these new pipes in, we'll have erosion control measures at the outfalls. Like I mentioned, we are going to have those catchment ditches as well as retaining walls. And so the erosion piece of it is going to be handled a lot in part with how we're widening the road and how we're accommodating that. So yes, we are looking at that.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Lisa, I'm going to send you one more. And if you need to send this to someone else, please let me know. Was the traffic data that you previously discussed from 2021 or a previous year?
So we took the counts in, I want to say it was 2018 or 2019. And that's kind of when we started the design process for this project. I think if we looked at that schedule, that 10 to 30% was in 2020. And so intersection counts were earlier in that spring timeframe. And then the corridor vehicle counts were probably 2019.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. It looks like, so Tina is asking who the primary funder is. And what I suspect is happening is, Bob, would you talk a little bit about MDT funds and the federal and state contributions to MDT funding?
You bet.
Thank you.
So MDT is funded. Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yep, you go ahead, you're on.
All right, I started getting weird feedback there, so I hope
Okay.
nobody else did. MDT is funded depending on the route. The percentage varies, and depending on some additional programs, such as Jacqueline had discussed, where we're looking for some additional funds. But this route generally is 87% of the funding on a project like this will be federal, come from federal dollars with a 13% MDT match. If we procure a grant, different grants have different matches required. Some of them, there's zero match required. Some of them have, some of them have 20 to 50% match. So it's really, on this project, the base funding, though, will be 87% federal, 13% state match. If we're successful securing some of our additional grants we're going for, those percentages will change slightly.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, that's all the questions we have in the queue for now. I would like to open it up. Oh, one more came in. So we'll hold off on where I was going next. The question is from Gary. Because traffic data was pre-2021 and traffic increased statewide significantly in 2021, are you anticipating any issues with turn lanes being needed when we or you thought they weren't? And we'll go to Lisa with that, Lisa Fisher.
Sure, and if anybody else has an add-on to this, feel free, but we do use what we call a growth factor. And so if we got numbers from, let's say, 2018, 2019, we apply that growth factor knowing that traffic will increase every year. And so we're not designing for 2023, we're really designing for 20 years beyond that, right? And so we're not just looking at that number today, we're anticipating what that design year, what that proposed traffic would look like in 20, 30 years from now. So as long as there's not, major growth that was not expected in the area, as long as that growth pattern is consistent, it should be okay.
And I'll speak up a little bit, Lisa, to add to that. MDT, has been working on projects with growth factors for a long, long time. And again, our growth factors aren't based on the last 5 years. They aren't based on the last 10 years. We've got pushing 100 years worth of data that so we're confident in what our growth factors are. There's definitely changes to them. And if you look at it across a single year or 2 years, it's hard to nail down how much growth you may have from one year to the next. But when you start looking at it decades at a time, our average numbers, we're confident in them.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Our next question, Bruce has a question about the slopes again. So there are down slopes along the lake that have sloughed. Several were addressed, but there are more that have not been addressed between the road and the lake. And Lisa, I'm going to go to you with that. It may be that we need to do some follow-up conversation about that, but if you want to go ahead and take a shot at it.
Yeah, and so this might kind of tie back to that erosion control piece too. I mean, we are providing additional roadside ditches where we can too. Those slopes that are sloughing between the lake and the road, I'm guessing that has a lot to do with erosion. And so as we kind of discussed before, if we can capture that, the water on the road a little bit better and make sure that it gets to where it needs to go, that's definitely going to help with that. And then in order to accommodate those 3 to 4 foot shoulders, that's going to look a little bit different after this project. And a lot of the grading will come back through. We'll try to get some vegetation on those slopes to help keep them in place. So those types of things, I think, are being looked at more from an erosion control standpoint, to try to keep that from sloughing off.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, very much. The next question is a question about trails.
Could I also add on? Sorry,
Yes,
could I
please
also
do,
add
Cameron.
on to that a little bit too? It might be worth noting too that some of those areas are in the really steep areas that are going to require the retaining walls. So there also may be some overlap between where we're now building new retaining walls and those slopes, just to add on.
Thank you very much, Cameron. That's helpful. So the next question is about trails. Peter asks, with respect to recreational access to the lake, with some of the pullouts, there is a point of land between the pullout and the lakeshore, and a low angle trail can be constructed on those points. But in other areas, the new retaining walls between the road and lakeshore may make access very difficult unless a trail is constructed which provides access down the retaining wall. Will the project design include any such trails. And we'll go to Lisa with that. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. We aren't including any trail design as part of the project. I think, access to the lake will be maintained. Another piece of it is that private property or state property, and who owns the property between the lake and the road. And so that would need to be kind of addressed as well. But at this time, the trails from the road to the lake, or from the pullout to the lake, just aren't included.
Thank you, Lisa.
And this is Bob again, and I will add to that a little bit, Lisa. And one of the challenges that we have with the highway department is from a funding standpoint. And there are a lot of things that, is this the best design possible? Is this a Cadillac design? No. This is a project, again, where we're trying to improve access for everyone through the corridor. We're trying to make this a safe route. We know we've got some hazards out there that are concerning, but at the end of the day, MDT has literally hundreds of millions of dollars of projects that are on the dockets that we can't fund today. So we have to be making some decisions, and it comes down to some of the issues are what's nice and what's necessary. And we have to make hard decisions and make sure that we're, before we expand our network of responsibility and our network of infrastructure, we have to make sure that we're building things that we can take care of, and that we're taking care of the things that are already been built. So that's another challenge. We are working closely with the state parks, because we recognize that there is the Salmon Lake State Park, and they've got their campground and their the boat launch area. We're working with them to make sure that we can facilitate access to that location. There's other sites where people are accessing it, but as far as expanding the trail network, state parks doesn't have a budget to take on additional responsibility to maintain additional trails, nor does Montana Department of Transportation. And then finally, one other thing that I want to add is that the discussion with funding is that MDT's funding comes from state and federal gas tax revenue. And as we're utilizing those revenues, there's certain rules and regulations that come with it as well on how we can spend our money and what we can spend our money on. So that does present additional challenges to our design process.
Thank you, Bob, very much. Okay, one more question. What is planned for the intersection of 283? Lisa, would you like to take that?
I can take that one,
Oh,
actually.
okay, thank you, Bob.
So the intersection of 283 Clearwater Junction, we do have a project nominated. We're in the middle of developing plans for that, and I am going to pull up my calendar real quick, and I'll invite Jacqueline or John if they have it on their calendar quicker than what I get to it. We do have a upcoming public meeting. I just can't remember the date off the top of my head. So
I can speak to that.
Perfect. Go ahead, Cameron. Thank you.
I'm also the associated with that project as well. And it's going to be November 18th. We're going to have an in-person meeting in Sealy Lake. And then we will also have a separate virtual meeting like this at a different time during that day. We haven't gotten the public notice out yet, but it should be coming out within the next week. And that's November 18th again.
Thank you, Cameron. And I would just invite the public, if you go to the Salmon Lake website, there's an interactive map on that website, and it shows the project to the south of us, which we just discussed, and a project to the north of us that are in various phases. if you go to the interactive map and click on the links, it will take you directly to the other websites. So you can kind of toggle back and forth and see what's happening in your region. It doesn't look like we have any other questions right now. As Bob previously mentioned, we just had the in-person public meeting. Most of this team on the online meeting went to that meeting. So what I'd like to do is just briefly invite the panelists to discuss anything that they heard from the public at the in-person meeting. I've checked through my list and I think we've hit most of the other issues that we heard. But if someone on the team would like to discuss a specific question they heard from the public, please feel free to take this time and do that.
One other item that I did have brought to my attention by two individuals at the open house was, we do recognize that this is a wildlife corridor and there is a lot of animal crossings, but the topography really doesn't lend itself to any type of wildlife crossings or a wildlife fencing, unfortunately. So we do not have anything planned for wildlife fencing or to develop wildlife crossings.
And that decision was made in consultation with the service. Is that correct? Can Lisa or Bob, can you help me remember?
Yeah, we went through kind of a wildlife accommodations exploration, if you will, and just kind of see what was feasible. And kind of going back to Bob's point of what the budget of the project is and what we can do within that earmark is really came into play there. And there was, you know, certain sections that maybe saw higher volumes of traffic related incidents with wildlife, but it is kind of more of a general area through this stretch. Just knowing, like Bob said, the topography here, it was just really tough to try to find that one single location that you see wildlife crossing the road.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. We have no more questions that have come up, so I will encourage the public to go to the website if you find later on you're thinking about something you wanted to ask us about. Again, I would let you all know that a lot of work was put into this by our panelists, and I want to express my appreciation to them and to our attendees as well. We understand that everybody's busy and we appreciate you taking time out of your day. I'm going to go ahead and close down things here unless anybody has anything else they want to jump in and say. Maybe Bob, you'd like to close down for us?
I'll just echo your thanks, Lisa. Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. And also, if you do have additional thoughts or questions come up, please reach out to via the contacts on the screen. And as project continues, this isn't the last time you'll hear from us. We will be having more outreach as the project continues to be developed and goes towards construction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Bob. Perfect way to end. Again, thank you for joining us and have a safe and lovely weekend.